Okay, now that all of our posts are installed and plumbed, we're ready to install our box beams. Now, I cannot stress enough how important it is with these modern pergola kits to have the posts square to each other or square to whatever structure you're attaching to. And how these all fit, it makes a really big difference, the overall fit and finish of the pergola, if things are square and plumb. So assuming that that's all done properly here, I've taken the liberty of installing some of the box beams here with my helper. It is really nice to have an assistant for this, so you're not up on a ladder by yourself trying to put these beams in. So once you put the beams in place, they have a certain way that they're supposed to be lapped. And in this freestanding pergola example, I'll just kind of demonstrate that here at this post. If you look down inside here, you notice one of these beams runs all the way to the corner and one of them runs and it butts into the other beam. Okay, this lap joint, if you follow this piece along here, this one's a little short, right? But we follow it all the way down to the other end of the corner, and that same beam comes all the way to the inside post edge. Okay, and you'll lap the beams all the way around like that. We did that to keep every beam in a freestanding pergola the same measurement, just for simplicity's sake. So here our kit we're building today is 10 by 10, and we didn't change any of the measurements from the factory. So if we hook our tape measure down at that end, we come down to this end, it's exactly 120 inches. Okay, so if we did trim our pergola a little bit, say our posts were at 9 feet now, on a freestanding pergola you're going to want to trim your box beams 2.5 inches shorter than the desired outside to outside measurement. Okay, so our beams are, instead of 120, they're at 117.5. If it was at 9 feet, you'd take off another 2.5 inches, they'd be at 105.5. Okay, so it is important to note that the freestanding pergola is a little bit different than how the attached pergola works. So if you have an attached pergola, it is important to know where your house is or your structure and where your main front beam is. So for example purposes, we'll kind of assume the house is back here and the front beam that goes from post to post would put out on that side. The post out here, we want that beam to be full length. So it will be from the inside of this corner here, full length, all the way to the inside of that corner. So using our example again of 120, that 120 inches, your outside box beam in that case would be 119.5. All right, so your other two beams are going to be a little bit shorter, and they'll start just like this, 2.5 inches from the corner, and they'd run all the way back to the house, and they would attach back here to the ledger plate on the structure with one of these rafter hangers. And there's a screw for that. You attach the hanger to the structure, and then you attach the box beam to the hanger with this 1.5-inch pan head screw. Okay? So once you've got the beams up and lapped the appropriate way, the next step is to fasten them to the post. Inside here, if you remember, we've got a post top standoff. There's a big aluminum plate underneath these beams, and we want to fasten them down securely to that plate. So to do that, I pop these holes with a vary bit, 3/4 inch vary bit, and I just drill these holes. They don't have to be pretty, they just have to be in the right spot. So here's the last one. Okay, once we've got all those holes in, we want to find our fasteners labeled beam to post. Grab a handful of those and put them in your pocket. Then they would go in your driver. Okay, for the sake of time, I went ahead and repeated that step at each one of the pergola corners. So all my beams are now attached down to that post top plate. The next step is to attach the beams to themselves. For that, I use what's called a beam attachment bracket. And that beam attachment bracket fits down in this inside corner of each beam like that. There is a fastener bag labeled BA bracket to beam. That's beam attachment bracket. So I take a bunch of those out, put them in my back pocket. And the beam attachment bracket has quite a number of holes on it, okay? You don't need to hit every single hole. 4 per side is plenty, okay? So I use these holes on the side of my post. Hold that all tight. Fasten that in. I'd put one more down on the bottom. And we'll come in through this side. Excuse me, I would put 3 more on that side and 3 more in this side. Okay. Once all those beam attachment screws are in, I'll switch out my driver real quick here. This attachment point is done. You can go ahead and put on your post cap. This is a cellular PVC cap. It's cut just to fit nice and tight inside there. And surprisingly enough, there's a bag of fasteners labeled post cap. So when you put the screws through the post cap, you do want to make sure that you're putting the screw through the cap and not down in the hole that's there. So you have to be mindful of where you put those holes. You don't need a ton of screws to hold this down. Okay, 3 is plenty. So that step is all complete. You want to repeat that step at each one of those pergola post locations, and you can move on to hanging up your rafters.